And we started doing shorts, documentaries, and we did a European co-production feature film. I think the budget was about 1.6 million.
Jesus.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
He's a media maestro with over 20 years experience in presenting, producing across TV, film, radio and so much more. He's also the brains behind this studio, so it's been very nice and an honour to switch seats and turn the mic on him. It is, of course, Garry Kelly. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome to your own studio.
Thank you, yeah.
I hope you like it.
On the other side of the table, yeah.
Well, because I've been over there and
Yes.
you've been here
Yeah.
and you're always here because you have a podcast as well, Garry Talks. And it's great now to be able to switch the mics.
Yeah, I'd say this is probably the second podcast I've done on the other side of the table. So it's very different. I love being on the other side because I love talking to people, hearing their story. I mean, that's really what I love about the whole podcast production is just actually hearing people's story, what went well for them in life, what didn't, how did they overcome those challenges and so on. It's, it's authentic storytelling. So yeah, God knows how bad the next 40 minutes are going to be. So my apologies.
Well, no, I think it's important that we get to know you as well, because when I find that when you're sitting here and you are, as you say, when you're presenting a podcast, you're only maybe giving little snippets of who you are. And I think it's nice then to be able to, as I said, switch the mics around.
Yeah.
So let's get straight into it. Where are you from? Where do you live?
So I'm a born and bred Galwegian. I believe I'm a seventh generation Galwegian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, you really are Galway.
Yeah, Dad did a lot of work a few years ago on the family tree. So he has like books and books and books of like birth certs and death certs and wedding certs and the whole thing. So I have to really do a deep dive with him at some stage and find out all about the history. So yeah, I'm a pure home bird.
Yeah.
I was born in Galway, grew up in Galway, went to school in Galway. At the age of 21, I went to New York for about 3 weeks on holidays, and after about a week, I was feeling homesick.
Oh.
I went to college in Galway, set up my businesses in Galway. I do love to travel, and I've always had this longing to retire on an old cobble street in Italy or in Spain or something like that, sipping on my little glass of vino, watching the world go by. But it's hard to know how realistic that dream will become because I love Galway so much, and I've seen it change so much as well. I remember there was parts of Galway which all the tourists would flock to. Nowadays, like Quay Street, but there was a time in the 80s no one would dare go down Quay Street. No one would go near Mary Street where you have like Buddha Bar and stuff now, which is a great place. And I remember in the 90s, Galway was the fastest growing city in Europe. So I think it was like 91, 92, and then it skipped a year and maybe 94. So because I grew up, close enough to the city, I've seen a lot of changes and a lot of development. So, and then on my father's side, my dad grew up in a house just across from Sea Point, which is where Johnny Carroll, who was on your podcast, would have played. And it's now kind of merged into O'Reilly's Bar. So there was my grandparents' house and O'Reilly's Bar. It has now since become just a bigger version of O'Reilly's. But then Killoran's used to be in the family.
Oh, wow.
And there's a hotel just between it now, which has actually been, I think it'll probably be turned into apartment blocks. That used to also be in the family as well. So we used to own a lot of property around Sawtill. And I'm even asking, where's the property that was in the family?
Like,
we've nothing to show for it.
Can we go back and squatters' rights or something?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And I suppose, but like, I think back even probably that time, Salt Hill wasn't probably the way it is now. As in, like, was there been a tourist, or was there a tourist place?
I remember Salt Hill used to have a festival on during the summer. And so the first concert I was ever at was the Commitments were playing on a stage in Salt Hill. And it blew my mind because I'd watched the movie. I loved the movie. I love film. So then seeing the cast on stage performing. So it had all the original, like Glenn Hansard and so on stage playing. And that was amazing. So they used to do a brilliant festival every year. There used to be an air show taking place. Salt Hill was hopping during the summer. And then that's where everyone went when they went out at night. All the nightclubs were in Salt Hill. The Work, the Oasis, Trends, Vagabonds. It was the place to go. And then over time, it started to change and people would actually head to town. Town was the place to go. So in my teens, Sawtill was the place, and in my 20s, it was town.
I love that actually. I always explain to people, I was like, because in Galway, we call Galway city town. It's always been town.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to town. And then I think people are always like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, we've always just called Galway town. I always think of Galway as a big town because it's so, I think, compact. And then I feel like we all know each other. It's like everyone knows everyone. Bring me back 20 years or so as experience now in media. Did you always want to work in the media industry, or how did that happen? Now, you did say there you loved film growing up.
Yeah.
So what was the plan?
So there's two things I was doing when I was young that kind of relate to what I'm doing today. When I was in primary school, in St.Pats primary school in town, or in Galway City, I used to host a radio show over the intercom on the days that we couldn't go out and play because it was raining. So we couldn't go out into the yard. Yeah. So the principal at the time, Brother Roberts, used to let me go on the intercom system. And it was great fun. It was nerve-wracking because, everyone in the school is listening to you. And then that transitioned to every Friday in 6th class, I think it was. I used to do a radio show, and after lunch, we'd come in after our lunch and he'd play the tape. So what I was doing is at home during the week, I'd have one cassette player playing the songs and the other one recording. And then I'd be talking into the other cassette player that was doing the recording.
Yeah.
And I'd do a little radio show and I'd be doing love requests for the lads or whatever, say Mary and Salerno, said hello to me. And it was great fun. And I remember I was really rebellious. At one stage I played Always Look on the Bright Side of Life from Monty Python.
Yeah.
And there's a little curse in it. And what I did is I put the beep after the curse. So the teacher didn't recognize it, but all the lads in class were like, ho, 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 ho. It was a big laugh. So yeah, I loved that. And then I was always doing stuff with my friends. I kind of coerced them into doing little drama plays and bringing people from the estate into a shed to see us do a performance. And then when my grandfather passed away in the mid-90s, I was given his camcorder. So I was using his camcorder then to make short films with my friends. And even growing up in the 80s, Dad used to hire out a camcorder for Christmas and video us opening the presents. And before that, he was doing Super 8 camera before even I was born, filming Christmas morning and so on. So I kind of grew up with cameras around and then embraced them when they became available. So I had this love originally for radio and for film. And in 1989, when I was 9, licenses were distributed throughout Ireland for local radio stations and regional radio stations to set up. So when I was 9, Galway Bay FM, or Radio West was called then, suddenly arrived. I was like, it was this big thing because suddenly we went from just national radio to actually people living in our locality on air doing sports shows and current affairs and so on. So that was really exciting for me. And then kind of went through secondary school and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. There was different things. I was in a band. I was writing singing, playing bass, and we were writing our own original music. So I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to be an actor, and I wanted to be a director.
And you know what? It was so you're obviously always a creative. But did you find like were your family like supportive of that? Were they saying, right, that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do? Or were they kind of saying, get a real job first? Or how were they with it?
No, I think they were really cool in being supportive. Because Mom worked in retail and Dad worked in Galway City Council. So, it was an era of you have a job or you have a job for life.
Yeah.
And my brother became a journalist. My sister became a dance and drama teacher. And I became whatever I am today, a content producer or whatever. And yeah, I think, on hindsight, looking back, it's cool how they just let us do what we wanted to do. Now, when I did, so I was going to do mechanical drawing in college because I was good at it in school. And I went to Limerick University and I was like, this campus is class. And then I went to Clonmara, which was this new college in Galway where they had just started up a film course.
Oh,
where the Crew building is now and Screen Ireland are based there and all that.
Lovely grey building, kind of almost monastery-like.
That's right, yeah. And so went in there and there was a girl with a camera on her shoulder and she was chasing a guy down the corridor, and then they take out the VHS tape, run down, put it into a tape player. They were laughing, watching, put the tape back in the camcorder, run down the corridor, do the scene again. And I was like, oh, this is fun. This is the type of college I want. I just want to have fun for a few years. So did a course, fell in love with it, set up a production company, for when I left college with 2 other guys. So I basically wanted to go in with a job. So we set up a company called Dig Productions, and we started doing shorts, documentaries, and we did a European co-production feature film. I think the budget was about 1.6 million.
Jesus.
Yeah, but we weren't, you'd do the odd project. And unfortunately, when you're producers, you're often the last to get paid. So it wasn't viable in terms of earning a living. And the conversation did kind of crop up then in the mid-20s of, look, you really got to get a job for yourself where you're actually earning a weekly wage and it's sufficient and so on. And that's then when I was working in Roach's stores at the time, and Debenhams came in to buy over Roach's stores. So there was a group of us, maybe 9 of us, that were being held by Roach's stores, who were setting up their own property management company, and everyone else was joining Debenhams. And there was people who had worked in Roach's for over 20 years, and they didn't want to join the property company. So I ended up becoming the shop steward and fighting for the rights for those who wanted to get redundancies or those who wanted to go into the other organization, whatever. And that was tough going. I got shingles about a week after all the negotiations were sorted and the deals were done. Stress, major stress, because I felt so sorry for people who are over 20 years in a job and just feeling that, and I'm not blaming anyone in particular, but I just feel that they were getting shafted by the system, and it fueled this anger in me that I didn't know was there, and I just fought for them so much. And I was sending these letters into senior management. They were like 3 pages long. They thought there was a solicitor involved. But like when I'm in the zone and I'm angry and I'm fighting for someone, like I'm very good at being thorough and matter of fact. And then I rang up Keith Finnegan in Galway FM, who was the CEO and the presenter of the Current Affairs show. I said, Keith, I told him the whole story, the changes that was going on, and I'd love to work in radio, and I've always had a desire for it, because what had happened is, we weren't making money in the film industry. Yeah. From the feature film that we made, the first meeting we had when it got in cinemas, it took 5 years. And us as a production company being producers and everything, we only got a couple of $1,000 back
after 5 years work.
Fee after 5 years work and a budget of over $1 million. So I said, I'd love to work in radio. So he says, yeah, come in tomorrow and we'll give you something to do. So I was in there for 2 weeks engineering, where you're pushing up the faders.
Yeah.
And they called me in and they said, okay, you want to do something else, don't you? And I said, yeah. I said, I'm bored. I said, I'm a creative person. I need to do creative things. They said, you want to go on air? And I said, absolutely. So they said, okay, you can go on air Saturday night. And that's when I started then on air presenting.
That's amazing, because as anyone knows, media jobs are so hard to come by. And I love the fact that you just literally rang up the CEO and was like, can I have a job? And it's funny you mentioned Galway Bay FM, because that's where we first met.
Yeah.
And Galway Bay FM, I was in there when I was 15, so we come up to 20 years ago. We were doing, my brother's friends were doing a charity cycle from Spain to Gort in his memory. And I remember someone had sent it to Galway Bay FM. Keith Finnegan's show got in touch and said, would someone come on and talk about it? And again, I was only 15, but my mother was like, sure, you want to work in media, so why don't you give it a go? Are you kind of, you love all this kind of stuff. So I was kind of, okay, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I was like, all right. So I went in, I spoke to Keith and I spoke about the charity, and then I went out, and I remember speaking to my mother afterwards, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And then I was like, that's what I want to study first, and then what I want to do. So then she was like, well, then you want to study media. And that's how it came about. So it's funny how Galway Bay FM kind of gave us both that.
Yeah, if you look at the people who went through the doors, in fairness, over the years, a lot of them have gone on to do like amazing things with media outlets overseas as well as nationally as well. So it is a great platform. And there's people who've worked there for over 30 years and, it has completely fulfilled them as well. So yeah, it has been great to so many of us.
How long were you on radio before you...
So I think I started in there, it was 2006 or 2007. So I started off engineering, then I was presenting Saturday night. It was just the best crack ever. I remember Plug to Supermax, I'd be getting phone calls from Cross Street and Supermax. So Supermax would always have Galway Bay FM on a Saturday, and there'd be people eating their snack boxes just coming out of the nightclubs, sending in requests, and I'd be putting it out so it'd be heard then in Supermax and Cross Street, and people were having a great laugh, and people would be phoning from house parties. And it was a great, clean, fun energy on the Saturday nights. And so that was kind of one of my favorite shows, even though it was kind of like the nighttime shift, the graveyard shift as such. And I went on then to co-presenting on The Breakfast Show, doing sports and stuff like that. I had a movie show on a Friday night. I was still presenting on a Saturday afternoon. I was producing the specialist shows. I, at one stage, was produced the current affairs show. I'd worked in news. I'd worked in the sports department for a long time. So I got a huge experience in there. And in 2013, the effects of the crash of the Celtic Tiger were taking effect. And myself and a few other colleagues were called in that day. And I always felt that I would be the second last person to walk out of that building. The last person being the CEO, Keith Finnegan, but I'd be the second last. I had the keys to the building. I knew the codes for everything. I knew everything about the equipment, whatever. I felt that I was untouchable. So I got a good kick up the backside in finding out that they were making redundancies, and they were making the role of sports on The Breakfast Show redundant. Therefore, my role was being made redundant. So it was a huge shock to the system at the time. My wife, she was 3 months pregnant with our firstborn. We were just a couple of years into a mortgage. I thought my career was working in radio for the rest of my life. The dream at the time was to work my way up to presenting the current affairs show on Galway Bay FM when the mantle was being passed. So yeah, it was really a rug pulled from under the feet moment. And it was trying to figure out, okay, who am I? Because we often define ourselves by our job. What do I do? So there was a lad, Frank Rainey, who had worked in Galway Bay FM as well, and I was working in News Talk.
Oh yeah, I was like, I know that name.
Yeah. So Frank lobbied for me in News Talk. So I was offered a job in News Talk. And the plan was Off the Ball had just changed its team because I suppose there was conflict internally, big changes. And the plan was for me to kind of move in towards being a part of the Off the Ball team. I was working in sports, and in fairness, I was to find out that I did a few weekends in News Talk, but actually in Galway Bay FM, I was getting paid better per hour than I was per hour in News Talk. So people think, national radio is the big thing, but for me, I was commuting up and down to Dublin. People were saying, you're mad to leave national radio. And I said, okay, I'm more valued in Galway. I don't want to be doing the commute, but also if I do Off the Ball eventually in a year or so, I'm going to be pigeonholed as a sports guy. And I don't want that because there's so much other stuff that I'm interested in. And it'll be hard 3 years being on Off the Ball to then turn around and say, okay, now I'm doing a business show or I'm making social media videos. So, and in fairness, Galway Bay FM said, look, you can work as a freelancer with us every weekend. So basically, within a month of leaving Galway Bay FM, I had done News Talk, come back to Galway Bay FM as a freelancer. And I remember my wife in bed crying at night because she didn't know what the future held for us. I had no job and everything. And I said, just in my head, I was saying, just please let me figure out what I want to do with myself. And she did give me that space. And I said, okay, I'm going to set up my own company. It's going to be me in charge. Because it was different. It was a different dynamic when I had a company with two other guys. Everyone has to come to an agreement. So I said, this is my vision. So I said, I'm going to focus on what I know. So I said, I'm going to focus on social media because when I was in Galway Bay FM, the likes of MySpace and Bebo and Facebook, they were all blocked because they saw social media as a bad thing. And I was fighting, and there's another guy in there, Alan Murphy, we were fighting for social media, saying it's a good thing, it needs to be embraced, it'll help. And now, of course, everyone can clearly see the benefits of social media. We'd brought in a social media policy. So I said, I want to focus more on social media because this has grown. Now, this is back in 2013. So I was starting off teaching people how to set up Facebook pages. That's how new this was for a lot of businesses, I said, I want to train people. So I started teaching GTI in the evenings. I started running summer camps in Galway City Museum for teenagers. And I said, I want to make videos. So when I was in college, a video camera was a good video camera was 95 grand.
95 grand?
95 grand, yeah, for a Digibeta camera. And now the quality was pretty good. At full high definition, you could get them for maybe 5 grand. So I got my own digital camera so I could start making videos. And from that, I just started trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but knowing these were the areas I wanted to explore. And podcasting is what I'd done a podcast in 2010 when I was working in Galway Bay FM. It was a monthly podcast promoting contemporary Irish music because I felt there wasn't enough contemporary Irish music promoted across the airwaves nationally.
Still isn't.
Still isn't, no. And people don't know either that, you know, at the time, I don't know what the rules are now, but at the time, if, for instance, Kylie Minogue recorded a song in a studio in Dublin, that was considered an Irish song. So 30% of songs played per hour by right had to be Irish songs.
Yeah.
But they weren't exactly songs by Irish songwriters or Irish musicians and so on. So I just felt we should take more pride in our own Irish musicians. So this was going on as well. So yeah, it was ticking along. I had Ailish working with me. Ailish became a mommy there a couple of months ago, so I'm delighted for her. And then Ailish went on working in the marketing department in the Sawtell Hotel. And then Damien joined me, and Damien's just brilliant. He's a great eye for video. So then everything kind of scaled up there for the video element. And then during COVID, we became essential workers. So we were all over the island of Ireland doing virtual festivals, live streaming, teaching people about social media again, doing loads of video campaigns. We were flat out, constantly working for a good 20 months solid. We were exhausted afterwards. But the business has done really well. So that gave us the opportunity then to say, okay, let's expand the team, which is what we did. And then we moved premises. So we used to share our office in town with Tommy Tiernan's production company. And then with COVID, everything stopped for Tommy. You know, he wasn't doing the Derry Girls, obviously not live stand-up shows.
Yeah.
His TV show on RT had paused at the time as well. Like no one knew how long this was going to go on for. So Tommy had said, look, if you want to take over, Tommy's wife, Yvonne, said, if you want to take over the office in town, do. And then the building was sold. Someone else had bought it. It was getting a bit shabby. So I said, we need somewhere new and different. And the lads in Intuition Technologies supported us wholesomely with setting up GK Media Studios here in Ballybrit Business Park. And it's been a whirlwind, amazing experience.
It's absolutely incredible. But like just to go back there, it's interesting how you said how good local media was to you. And I talked to a lot of young, aspiring journalists, presenters, and I always say to them, go to your local media, because honestly, like that, you go in doing one job and suddenly you're doing 40 jobs.
Yeah.
But like that, you say, like you're saying, like there with the sports side of things, you didn't want to be shoved just in sport. And like I'm kind of the same. I love doing a bit of everything. But I found it from working in local media, because they'd send me to a political thing, they'd send me to like a horse racing yard, and then they'd send me to a GA thing, and then they'd send me to a book launch. And then I got to kind of try it all.
Yeah, but you're good at it, Meghann. I had so many bloopers on air doing sport. I remember one morning doing the breakfast show, coming on, announcing how the Curra Finn had won the All-Ireland Hurling Championship.
Oh.
And anyone who knows the GA, Curra Finn are amazing footballers, not hurlers. Or when I was pronouncing Russian tennis players, my trick was to say it really fast so it sounds like you know how to pronounce them, even though it was like gobbledygook to me. So look, I enjoyed sport. I played a bit of it in school, but I wasn't a sporty guy. I was the guy who was like Friday night sitting at home watching a Hitchcock movie with my dad. I mean, I was just loving that. I was grabbing a camera, going out making stuff with friends. I was with 2 cassette tapes at home or recorders, doing a little mock-up radio show. Like that was the stuff that I really, really loved. And, you know, I was lucky enough to fall into a job doing sport in the radio station. It was a full-time job. Ollie Turner, who's head of sport there, was really sound, really supportive, really guided me along. And what I always love about Ollie is he was never one who would throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
And in radio, there's a lot of people who want to throw you under the bus and get the seat, you know, get that slot or whatever. So there was some really, really good people in there. But there's much better sports people out there. And I'm glad they are doing it now and not me.
But I suppose it's led you to here, to GK Media. And like we're here in the studio, one of the studios, I should say, which, as I said, every time a guest comes in here, they just go, wow. Because I think and you probably noticed, like you kind of alluded to it there, that we talk about like national radio, national television. It's kind of saying if you get the job in the big station, you should stay there. But, you know, and I think for a long time, all the media work was in Dublin. Like we're so lucky we have TG Carr out here.
Yeah.
But it's very much so like centralised in Dublin. Like people used to always say to me, when are you moving up? Why aren't you moving up? When are you moving up?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to move up. And then,
but didn't they say that, you know, Dublin's where you make it and Galway was the graveyard of ambition or something like that?
Yeah, there's some things like, it was like, what to say? It was like, someone said recently to me, it was like, people say if you go to Galway, people that go to Galway are the people you want to shake and say, do something. And I was like, yeah, but it's also very good fun.
Yeah.
But that's why I think this is great, because like this is showing, you can do you don't need Dublin. And we have this, like this studio is class. And like, I was like, the location as well, I think is just ideal.
Yeah, just off the motorway, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, but it must be great then, because as I said, I'm freelance, you work out of your own company. And like it is being your own boss, it's nice to be able to bring all the experiences of your media career probably into this.
When I started up GK Media and started focusing on video, I think the key thing that made us different was there was a huge experience there of actually knowing how to work with audio.
Yeah.
So there was videographers out there and they could make beautiful cinematic stuff, but they weren't great when it came to audio. I had like, a good chunk of 6-7 years audio experience. And I stayed working in Galway FM until 2020. So it was like 14 years working there in the end. So I was good at audio. And then when Damien came in, we really excelled and improved at the visuals, but then building the studio. So Damien, who built studios in Galway FM, Damien Burke, a different Damien Burke, who's been a friend of mine since St. Patrick's primary school.
Wow.
Yeah. He helped me build this studio.
Yeah.
So like this podcast studio is built with a whole broadcast quality mentality in mind. And that's been the mantra following on building the second studio now as well. So, and again, the cameras that we have here today, they're 6K quality. So again, we wanted to have the best of everything, the best mics, the best acoustics, the best cameras, the best lighting, so look, a lot of money has been pumped into it, but I just like to do things right from the start. So you're not trying to make up for it later on when things are falling apart.
Yeah, no, it is class. And there's a bit of an extension going on.
There's an extension going on. So we're building another studio, which will be set up so this is a round table kind of discussion. The next one will be set up more like a chat show style podcast studio. And we're building a boardroom in there. And then in another room as well, we're building a live cutting room. So we can, if someone's recording a podcast, we can live cut it there and then for them. Or if they're doing a live stream, we can live stream the whole production for them as well in the other room. So it'll be cool. And look, I'm always trying to think ahead of what's happening. So you're bringing in additional services to hopefully meet a need and a demand. But I think, like there's amazing people here in the west of Ireland. I think, we should be fighting collectively to turn the west of Ireland into the Hollywood of Ireland. There's so much expertise, so much great facilities. People don't need to be based on the East Coast anymore. There's plenty we can offer over here on the West.
And of course, award-winning. So I don't what can you tell us? What can't you tell us?
Well, I don't know when the episode's going to go out. So I was informed last night. So I haven't even told my parents yet. And I said I'll tell Mom first. But Mom will know before this goes out that we have been awarded the Business All-Star Podcast Studio of the Year.
Unbelievable.
So that's a national award. So that is brilliant. And that's because, even Sheila Shoiga, who records in here, she was on a HSC webinar a few months ago and she had said that this studio is one of the best studios in the country. And she's been in loads of studios. She loves the energy when she comes in here. We produce podcasts on a weekly basis for the HSC. We're now working with another HSC department. We're producing podcasts for University of Limerick. We produced a series of podcasts for National Breast Cancer Research of Ireland last year. We are producing podcasts for CRE. We've produced podcasts for Galway Races. We've had loads of businesses and solo entrepreneurs coming in here. We have the GK Media Studio Creators Network, which you're part of. So there's a lot going on in the whole podcast. And like we're leading the way, we're charging, we're setting the standard. And it's brilliant to see an idea come to life and the ripple effect it is having. And, to be honest with you, there's people who come in producing podcasts or recording them and we might produce them for them and they might edit it themselves, but they're seeing the knock-on effect for the businesses because podcast is a great way of consuming really good content in a more in-depth manner where you can multitask. So people, can go for a run, a jog, be on the train, drive in their car, whatever, and listen. Whereas with video, they pretty much need the full-on attention. That's why videos are kind of getting shorter and shorter. And with podcasts as well, it gives people the opportunity to learn more about someone because that space of a conversation is allowed before someone even presses play. They know, okay, I'm committing the next 40 minutes doing a task whilst having this on in the background. So it's a great form of kind of getting the word out there about yourself, but also sharing knowledge.
Well, it's completely and utterly deserved. So, Chordagus, congratulations.
Camilla
And
Margaret.
the whole team as well. Everyone's always so welcoming. I come in here. Like, I always come in here too early and then I end up sitting down chatting. I was like, so sorry, your team. Sometimes I'm like, they're meant to be working and I'm here going, bah, 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 bah.
No, I feel bad when I come in here because when an idea comes into my head, I have to shout it out. So I'm like constantly interrupting them. Oh, do you know what we should do now? I have this idea. And I was like, oh, they just hate me. They just like, because of course, every idea Gary has becomes a job or a task for them. It's not that Gary actually rolls up his sleeves and gets involved and does it because they're just so much better doing these things. So yeah, I keep saying, do you want me to go into the other room if you're not able to get stuff done? But they're cool. Like they're still putting up with me.
Oh, it's great. No, it's great in here. And that's what I'm saying. It is so welcoming. It's like, it's not intimidating at all, considering it's such a professional standard of a studio. It's that's what you kind of want. It's like you don't want people to feel intimidated, because I find a lot when you do sometimes put a camera in front of people, they kind of go, and they do, and you're just kind of, but I just find in here, everyone actually that I've interviewed in here is just completely comfortable, which is what you want. That's the achievement. And we got.
But even a little thing is, you had said to me, sorry, but
what did I say now?
but you said, because we laid a new carpet down the corridor and in the new space, and you were like, are you going to change it in here as well? And I was like, no, I purposely put in a red carpet so when people open the door, there's this kind of, it's not what you expect. It's this bright red carpet. I didn't want people to walk in here feeling like they're going into a corporate environment or anything, which is very much what the setup was when we initially took over the unit. So it's all these kind of things where we wanted to be a real homely, welcoming space for people. Because I know what it's been like, even in radio, it can be very intimidating and it's busy and so on. So I think it's important that people know that they're coming into a warm, safe, comfortable environment.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Now we got to get to your Galway, because I was just thinking there, I was like, you are the most Galway guest I've had on my Galway series. So it's amazing. Where in Galway is your favourite place to eat?
So I don't really get to go out to eat that often. I'm married to an Italian, so she loves to do her home cooking.
Oh, I love Italian food.
I love Martin's Blackrock Cottage in Sawtill.
Yeah, it's lovely. Location as well.
Yeah, I love the Galleon in Sawtill as well. I mean, I used to go to the Galleon, as a child with my parents. And now I'm bringing my children at the age I was to the Galleon. And it's just consistent. It's lovely. And there's a great Indian actually out in my Cullen. I don't know, should I be telling people because I don't want them all to know about it?
But I'm going to pass my Cullen in a few days. So
yeah, it's near the Forge. Noshi, I think it is pronounced. It's a really, really good Indian. So if you like your Indians there, we don't really eat too much Italian because it's made regularly at home. We wouldn't really be into Chinese food as much. We like the 12 as well. We've often had a lot of family events out at the 12 in Barna. But just kind of, we'd just walk around shops, then we'd nip in to the odd place. We love 56 Central, actually, Jill Carroll's place in Shop Street. That's great. It's like, it's great for meetings, it's great for the family, the kids. It ticks a lot of boxes. We like I forget the name of it now. It's behind Glenlow Abbey. It's part of Glenlow Abbey.
Pullman.
Pullman's the train. This is
the restaurant in.
But there is a really nice restaurant there as well. Yeah, I do love Glenlow. Built on to Glenlow Abbey. So we don't really eat out a lot. Like the missus and myself, actually, it's not that we pride ourselves, but we're quite aware of how we don't eat out a lot or spend a lot of money on clothes or getting hair done or anything like that. We're quite conservative. Yeah. And we like to spend all our money then on holidays.
Do you know what? Absolutely. I love that. And what about when it comes to socialising? Is there a place that maybe, it mightn't even still exist, is there a place that you used to love going to, or is there a place you still go to now?
Well, when I was in my 20s, I used to love going to Sally Long's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because I was big into my heavy metal and that was the place to go. And the Hole in the Wall was a spot as well.
I used to love that race week.
But they've renovated the Hole in the Wall now. It's like they've done an amazing job. Always watched the Super Bowl in 13th on, I think it's 13th on the green. It was Garvey's down the Air Square on the corner. It's a great spot for American football. I'd go to Sheridan's, which would be the local in Knocknacarra. The few times a year I'm allowed out. I would have been more, I think once the kids were born, I would have been out less socialising. So I would have maybe had a bottle of wine or 2 or 3 at home during the week. And Italian? I'm actually cutting that down. Yeah, I've actually moved more towards Italian wines. So I had smoked for a few years.
Mm.
And when I stopped smoking, every time I had a pint, I wanted a cigarette. So I said, I need to change this. So I said, if I drink something completely different, it might help. So I did. I switched to wine. Now, at the start, I was drinking wine like it was a pint. So to kind of pull back on that. And then I actually, when I stopped smoking, I also realized that I hated the taste of certain beers because the smoking was actually killing the taste buds in my tongue. So as the taste buds started to kind of replenish, I started falling in love with certain types of wine. So I became a bit of I'd say it was a pain in the backside for some of my friends, like talking about, oh, this is amazing. You must try it. The floralness. But I started to fall in love with certain wines, and the wines from the south of France I really like.
Mm.
And generally, I think a lot of the wines you get in Italy are pretty good. It's, if you pay, a reasonable amount of money for a bottle of wine from Italy, I don't think you'd be disappointed. Where there's certain wines from North France and from Spain and Portugal that I wouldn't grab me as much.
Interesting. And where do you like to go, maybe to walk or chill out?
I love walking through Barna Woods.
Do you know what? Barna Woods gets so many shout outs in this podcast.
Okay,
A lot of people say Barna Woods.
Yeah. And then every weekend we generally bring the kids out for a spin and we'll go for a walk. So we could walk. There's a lovely promenade along on Spidgel. We love going out towards Connemara at the weekends. There's just something about it, whether it's even going out to Clifton for the day or trying to get into Renville House for seafood chowder or something like that. Big shout out to Anne-Marie. She's a great
I'm
host.
actually going there on Sunday.
Oh, are you? Oh, I love Renville House. It's amazing.
So excited.
I was speaking to someone recently actually I was at the Berlin Film Festival, and he hosts a writer's retreat. He's from America every year in Renville House for a week in October. And I was telling him, that there's a great history of, the film industry in Renville House. He's like, how do you mean? I was like, well, Brenda Fricker, when she won her Oscar, she came back to Ireland and she went to Renville House and she had this big party and she threw her Oscar in the pool. She's spoken about throwing her Oscar in a pool at a party, but it was actually the pool at Renville House.
Oh my God, I didn't know they had a pool.
Yeah, they have a lovely outdoor heated pool.
Really?
It's unreal. And when Daniel Day-Lewis retired from acting, I think he's coming back now working on a project with his son. He went to Renville House for a couple of weeks just to kind of wind down. So I got to see the room that Daniel Day-Lewis stayed in.
No way, I didn't even know.
Because he's a fantastic actor. Look, there would have been, they're very respectful in not kind of naming the guests that they've had over the years, but they would have had a lot of film celebrities staying with them over the years. And that's just the world I love. So to me, it's really cool.
That's amazing. Well, look, Gary, to finish up, I ask every guest the same question for a finish. You have a full day off, so describe your ideal day in Galway from start to finish.
I'll go and do a bit of a workout. So hit the gym. I might go to Energy in Clybourne or to Duco Gym there in Knocknacarra. And then I'm a sucker for real self-pampering. So I'd love to hit the sauna, the steam room for like an hour or 2 hours, the jacuzzi. And then I'd actually like to hop in the car and drive out to Connemara, stop off at a nice restaurant and eat. I love hearing the Gaeilge. Yeah. There's just something about it. And I love the naturalness, the authenticity, the roughness of Connemara. Nothing is perfect. It's rugged. And I love that wildness about it. And you just feel you're in another world, even though you're only an hour, away from Sawtill Barna. Potter about, sometimes bring a notebook, write ideas. I can never sit and be quiet in my mind. There's always ideas or conversations running through my head and jotting them down, setting up plans or strategies. I love that. Then come home, collect the kids maybe from mom and dad's. Hopefully the wife has made dinner.
Nice Italian.
The pressure isn't on me to do something. Yeah. And just chill in front of the fire and watch silly telly together. Yeah.
That sounds delightful. I think us creatives are quite similar. It's like when people talk about, turn your mind off. And I was like, I feel like when I switch my mind off, then all these really good ideas just come flooding. And like that, I need to write them down. Otherwise, it's like they vanish. Yeah. It is something that I've kind of, there's a positive and a negative to it. I at times it's like, I do wish the mind would just quieten because it could be on rapid fire with ideas. But I think sometimes simple little things like a walk or even just exercising where you're focusing on just trying to survive, whether it's a run or you're doing weightlifting. I don't want to be thinking about the next podcast. I think it's good where
it's healthy and the mind is just focused on one specific thing, but then the subconscious is working away and so on. But look, it's I wouldn't say it's a gift, because that sounds like a bit narcissistic, but it's something that I have been given, that I appreciate, that my mind is quite creative. And the fulfillment for me then is having an idea and seeing what it becomes months, years later. It's pretty cool.
Well, Garry Kelly of GK Media Studios, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you into your own studio.
Thank you.
And to have you on my podcast, which I know I'm part of the Creators Network. So it's been nice though to get to know you a bit better and to hear your story. So Gurmila Magat.
Fáilte